Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to Theoryforge Chronicles. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Sog, the legendary neurotoxin, and the infamous Diggs, who will hopefully speak a little bit today. I'm sorry, that was just some pre-chatter. We are live. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. So far, so good.
So I actually think we were supposed to talk a little bit about Ashes of Creation, but obviously we had a sort of sudden surprise of Settlers of Elyria Volume 2. So we figured, that's probably kind of important to talk about a little bit. So here we are. Anybody have any initial impressions?
You know, I'm actually going to address Immaculate Deceptions, episode 45, Where to Trees. The map definitely gives a different set of information than the previous one, which is interesting because these are both, from what I understand, interpreting from the same source set of data, but it's just so dynamically different. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I heard something else about water. What was the water one? Trickling down and but not.
Are you muted there?
There we go. I've been coughing, so I try to mute a little bit. No, I don't have the virus. So the what I was saying, not convinced. Well, luckily we're thousands, quite a ways away from each other. So, God, where was I? So, the things that people have noticed or kind of talked about on Discord with the differences in the map, the trees are missing. So, initially it looked like there was going to be quite a bit of elevation data, which everyone was, I think, kind of excited to see. And there is some differences. I mean, you can see some of that. I don't think it's as pronounced necessarily as people maybe had hoped. But some of the kingdom, duchy, county lines are apparently to some people look a little different. Some roads look a little different. Rivers are also sort of popping up where they weren't before. Some waterways apparently also look like they no longer go into an ocean anymore. So there's just been a lot of questions about whether that the land has actually fundamentally changed, or if this just is a different sort of representation. It just looks different.
We know the answer to that question.
Right. I assume it's no. I mean, everything is the same. It's just this is
the underlying facts about the property are not different.
That is correct. Nonetheless, the eye is what people typically go by, and what they see is different in some ways. So
humans are crazy.
I would
what
say
you see is not what you get.
One thing that might throw that off is before we had the borders along the waterways to let us know kind of how easy or difficult it would be to access the water at that line. And the way they've changed it up, basically you don't have that anymore. So you have to kind of extrapolate from the topography and what sort of biome that is, try to match it up with the the real world equivalent. And I'm looking at like Lower Montaigne, for example. A lot of the stuff kind of looks like I was looking at, what was it on Google Maps, the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir in Yosemite as like a good example for it. And sure enough, it's maybe a bit wider than the waterway I'm specifically looking at, but has a lot of similar properties, and it looks like it'll be one that'll be a nice calm sort of waterway that'll be able to go up and down pretty easily. It's not going to be, rapids coming down from a mountain. So I'm fairly excited. Actually, been able to confirm my initial suspicions about it to some extent. Still not 100% yet until things are up and running, but that's the sort of thing that now I feel like we can get a different set of information, where before we had more of an artistic border to let us know how much of a cliff, how much of a drop off versus how much you were kind of getting a nice shallow entry into the water. Now it's you have to look up what kind of biome it is, and look up the real world alternatives or equivalents. And maybe if you still have screenshots of your old the old map or whatever, you can kind of match the data between the two, which fortunately I did. I actually had it all mapped out, gridded out and everything in like a Google Draw. So yeah, I have the old version available to work with still too.
Yeah, there was some loss of information without the icons, and especially being in the tropical rain or tropical wetland area where a lot of usable area is shallows, and it's harder to see how far that extends in within a county border. But we had that information before, and that shouldn't have changed. We have no information to suggest that it has changed, so I'm happy to just go with it. Like Noslam mentioned, that bridges are nowhere. It is harder to imagine and understand some movement due to missing a few of the icons, but at the same time, I think one of the things that we learn from looking at the roads is that we can understand what is traversable a little bit better without a whole bunch of icons over it. And I come from having placed in a wetlands environment, so if I were to look at my county right now, all of the roads are at the highest elevation points of the county, and it gives a pretty interesting explanation as to why roads aren't connected in places where you would have thought before, yeah, those should just be connected. Now I think, well, if the roads are always at on these ridges, on these what appear to be high points, it may be that the average points or the low points are really just marshy, not easily traversable areas, and that there are reasons why things aren't connected as well as you might want them to be if you were just drawing dots or just connecting dots on a map.
Yeah, and I think some of the biggest, I guess the biggest difference is it is a stylized map. So a lot of people commented on the borders being, you can look at them, and the continent border no longer matches up to the 90-degree turns or changes that you see. Obviously, that doesn't mean you suddenly no longer possess that small bit of land that existed before. It's just that they've stylized the map more, so it's now following a more curved sort of path versus the previous map. It did follow more along those sort of blocks. Those, what is it, 64? I forget. We broke it down. The small ones.
64 square meter.
Yeah. What would be great?
It doesn't appear to be different at the county view level, though.
I mean,
it still has the jagged edges. It's
well,
right,
the lines
still,
do. Yeah, the geo lines do, but the actual coastline is.
Yeah, those weren't going to change because those are political boundaries that are based on 64 by 64 plots that are laid out in a grid across the entire world or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, but at the duchy view level, it appears that some curving has been adjusted. And at the kingdom level, the lines aren't as jagged as they were before. But once you drill down all the way to looking inside a county, you see the step block by block or plot by plot ownership.
Even at the duchy level, I see the jagged lines on it, but yeah, definitely by the time you're looking at the kingdom level,
So I think one
it's
thing that would have been nice that could have been fairly easily done within Leaflet is to just make the option to switch between the maps. Select the new versus the old. That programmatically would not have been hard to do. That obviously probably would double their. I guess would put potentially a strain on bandwidth if they have access to all these different maps people are pulling from. I mean, it would double what's currently there. I don't know anything
Almost
about their
every view of it is cached anyway. We're not downloading the entire map every time we click on it, so I don't think that would be a problem. But I see value in iteration and growth and additive knowledge, and I think that in a lot of places we have a better idea of what the area feels like than we did before. My specific area being, flat-ish wetland, it's harder to tell, and there wasn't going to be a whole lot of added value to this. But if you look at some of the more mountainous regions, instead of just having, a couple peaks saying, "Hey, there was a mountain there," an icon on there, you've got a pretty good idea of exactly where those high points are, and how you might get up there, or more likely avoid it because you need to get around it to travel. You don't go over the mountain unless you absolutely have to.
Yep.
This.
Yeah, no, it's go ahead.
No, you finish.
I was gonna say it's definitely, now that we see the topography, kind of helps set in a little bit just what we're dealing with, because I was looking at a lot of areas that I had kind of been looking at before. I look back over now that the topography has been added, and it's like, oh well, that's certainly not what I was originally expecting. But I guess if they only rate, high ground and mountain and all of this as, part of like the low to high differential or something, then I could understand why these, now sloping hills that I thought were going to be kind of flat areas are sloping hills, but still not sloping so acutely that they would have gotten the icon before.
I think it's also easier to see the direction of water flow.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Riftwood is what I'm most familiar with, because that's where I've settled. It's much easier to see that water from the tropical rainforest is flowing down into the tropical wetlands, where before it looked like there might be some like highland lakes or something, but really they're lowland lakes. They're at the bottom of the incline, and it's much easier to fully see how that works. So in my county, a lot of the land is a downward slope coming from Tyria, right? So more than half of the county is this downward gradient from Tyria until you get to the tropical wetland core of the biome. And it changes my perspective a little bit, that I thought that I was claiming my settlement in a higher area, but really I'm at the base, at the start of the foothill.
Zero said almost the same thing there in chat. I thought I was to the top of the mountain. I'm actually in a valley.
Yeah, it doesn't. I actually thought that I was in an area where my settlement was protected by the scenery around me, when really it's like I'm at the bottom of this slow gradient hill, where people could come right towards me anytime they want. I don't think that it matters too much, but it changes the way I have to think about the location.
So I can see why people are upset. I think it would be good to have some sort of stream or some explanation, because all the community has to do right now is plan, right? So a lot of these people are pointing out kind of important things. They've been planning what they're going to do for months now, thinking I'm on a peak, and then this comes out and it's like, oh no, I'm actually way down here in the valley. That does kind of change what your strategy will be, and how you're going to work together within your county or your duchy or your kingdom. So when there's so many discrepancies, I think it would be helpful at some point, at least. It doesn't have to obviously be tomorrow, because they're still trying to get things running perfectly with this, but at some point soon, just to try to explain a little bit better, what the map means.
I don't know. I don't know that we need that. I like the changing perspective. I like the Neuro's a planner. He is big time planner. I am not a big time planner. I am the opposite of that. I don't keep lists. I don't have a schedule. I don't have a where do you want to be in 10 years. I don't have I don't have all of these like things in mind. I don't even think, I saw this area. The fundamentals of why I wanted it haven't changed dramatically. I enjoy situations changing around me because it gives me the opportunity to problem solve and react around that. And that was part of the reason I claimed where I claimed, because I figured there would be lots of things potentially happening that would force me to react and problem solve if I were looking for a clear idea that I wanted to do this and I have this plan laid out, I would have chosen very differently. What from the perspective of someone with grand plans, it has to feel very different. But I need to hear the perspective. I don't have those
Well,
feelings.
I'm just thinking about some of the things our guests had once. So what if you want a mountain goat army, and you thought you picked a settlement on a mountain, and it turns out it's not?
You're in a valley, as somebody just said.
Or even just gentle sloping hills. That's a big difference.
It is. It's one of those things, though, where it's still hard to say how much it actually is or going to affect gameplay for those differences to occur. It could be that, for all we know, the differences actually lead to an advantage we didn't realize we were going to have. It helped us to avoid disadvantages we didn't realize we were going to have or could have had. So it's something where it's really hard to say still, and the amount of planning that one can do at this point is trying to find the people you're going to work with and approximately what sort of tasks they're planning to do. But beyond that, like laying out a city building by building, don't be doing that yet, please. That's a little too early.
So the site itself moves. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying nice. It sounds like everybody's still pretty happy with what they have.
Maybe.
I think for us, my county's flat, right? So it's always been flat. Doesn't really have much in the way of water. It basically has 2 roads. It's a small county, so I mean that for mine's not changed at all.
I thought you were on the coast.
Yeah, but I mean internal waterways. There's not much.
Freshwater.
Yeah.
Freshwater.
So I mean I've not had an issue, but the map itself looks nicer. Nero, did you have something else still with this?
Oh, I was gonna say the tinfoil hats might at some point chime in, perhaps after I've made this statement that, oh yeah, they're releasing the Settlers of Elyria stuff along with this new map because they want everyone to be upset by the places they bought and then buy other places that they're going to focus on instead. And obviously that's totally not the case here, but I could see again the tinfoil hats being like, "Oh no, they tricked us! It's a conspiracy." Blah blah blah. No, that's about it. I mean, it's
I don't
an
know.
interesting situation.
I think there are a couple places that may have been claimed ahead of time that were not claimed until now if we had this map. I do think that a lot of, at least at the county level and the settlement level, I think a lot of people would have picked that the whole domain selection would have happened differently because it only takes one high IP, quad count or double duke or whatever to totally have a cascading effect downward for how picking goes. And if anyone at that level feels like they would have rather had something different, well, we can't rewind and say, well, that would have even been available. We don't know because we don't know if somebody else would have had the same thought. Well, that place looks a whole lot better now than it did before. And I can understand people having that feeling only because people can still pick those. They have to pay for them, but everyone who's picked are paid anyway. So I can understand a little bit of irritation or people second guessing. I don't have a lot of remorse or like second guessing in general. Not my thing, not something I really relate to, but I'm happy to make a decision and live with it because that's exciting to me. But I do feel like my county is different now to how it was when I claimed 3 counties.
What about resources?
They shouldn't have changed. The way that it's displayed has changed mildly, where it explicitly tells you what you don't have now.
Mm-hmm.
Unavailable resources, stone and caves not present.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that was a valuable addition, right? I don't think the change in the view is any better. I think, I'm not a data visualization expert, but the pie chart is for the tribes. I like numbers. I'm a numbers guy, not a pictures guy. So I liked being able to look at a number and have an idea. Looking at the picture, it doesn't help me. What do you guys think about that? I'm the wrong person to ask about this, and that's why I'm not even included in UI and visualization discussions at
Are you
work.
talking about the pie chart for the tribes?
For the tribes.
Yeah, you just click on it and it tells you what percent it is.
Yeah, but I don't need that.
Why would we need the percentage?
Do you
Why
even
would I
care what percent tribes anybody is anywhere?
How would I have known that I could even click on that anyway? I didn't know that I could click on that until you just told me, and I've been playing around with this map. Like, why Why do I have to deal with this pie
Because
chart?
they told us. Maybe that was in the
I'm trying to
10K
click
that
on
they
this
told
Draz
us. I can't
portion,
remember.
and it keeps showing me Toresk 87%. It must know that Toresk are just way cooler. Yeah. Oh, I managed to click on the Draz portion. 8.87%.
But
Yeah, I
you-
did not fully understand how that worked, but I would rather just see the numbers. But I would always rather just see the numbers than see a chart because the visualization doesn't help me understand it.
Huh.
Do you guys feel like it's more understandable seeing a pie?
I think it's easily understandable.
The UI improvements, I do think it's improved. It's better than it was. The speed overall of the site is much faster than it was.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
It hasn't been for me.
Oh, it has seemed that way for me. I know other people have commented on that as well. I still wish
it's
it was.
been all right for me.
Still wish it was free form, zoom in, zoom out, pan this way and that without having to look here, look there. But it does seem to load faster overall. I mean, the UI is. I think it does display things a little bit better. It does make resources a little bit more understandable. Before, they didn't always have most abundant, second most in order like that. You'd have to sort of scroll over and find out where, what was what. And ID said it is. I forgot. I guess they've announced it is ranked. So the resources in that new panel ranks from top to bottom, most abundant to least, which is helpful. It doesn't say that, but maybe it should if that's the case. But I guess you still wouldn't know necessarily how much the least amount, of resource. What does that actually mean? But do I have a couple of flowers, or do I actually have fields to grow?
You have more sand than anything else, but it's still not enough to even make any glass.
So a little secret that ranking has always been known, but anyways, it's better visualized now.
Okay. I knew the ranking existed.
Well, it didn't, but that's a different story, I guess, for a different day. So
It existed. It was presented to the site. It just wasn't displayed on the site.
All right. Yeah.
Don't you have farmland, which is what you really care about?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have everything actually. If you go to the county, there's actually
everything.
Nothing yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh wait, no, sorry. High ground and sand.
No sand.
Which is strange since I'm on the coast, but we'll figure that out.
Lots of coasts don't have sand.
Well, I mean, we can assume that means it's high. I don't know how you don't have high ground and no sand, right? Usually, if you don't have sand, you have some sort of rocky cliffs. Not always, but
If it's volcanic coast. But then usually there's some high ground at least nearby. There's some high ground nearby. But I think high ground refers to settlements in a high ground advantageous position. Not like at the county level, whether or not there's high ground is not like, are there hills? It's, are there any settlements in an area that is more defensible due to elevation? It's how I read it. Am I wrong?
don't think so. Sorry, I'm typing. So let's see.
Pretty much this hasn't changed the way Sog, you think it's different, but it hasn't changed the way you're thinking about playing or whatever your goals were.
I have never had enough information to put in a lot of specific goal setting time, and I like to take what I have and roll with it. But I still don't know what I have.
And then
I
go
know
ahead.
that I am on the border of 2 other kingdoms, so I'm gonna be presented repeatedly with things to do. Even if that's just talk to people. I'm
or
happy
set up a
to.
school.
Yeah, well, my capital is an education. It's one of the few primary industry is education in the settlement. So it's one of the few places like that. So maybe I'll just like quit being an accountant and go work in the school. I don't know yet. I'm trying to keep my options open. I like the area. I like the potential for the work as the count. I really like the settlement location, but I have a slightly different view of what it means now. And I'm happy with that. But I could see that if I went into this saying my goal, let's say we had Malvorn on the show and he loves horses, and having a duchy that was known for the quality of its horses, and you know having all of this other stuff that he's specifically excited about. And if I were him and it came and then I looked and the topography was all wrong, and my goal, I couldn't meet those goals, and everything that I did from day one was about my dream to be um horse lord duke of NA East, and yeah, it could be very disappointing. I didn't set myself up for that, because not that it's an intentional thing that people do, but I don't have that kind of specificity in my plans to play. I The biggest specificity of my plans to play is to, and I was very clear about this when I was choosing my domain, that the biggest fear that I had about choosing a domain or choosing a settlement was that people wouldn't go there. My biggest fear
Right.
about the game is being the leader of a settlement that nobody goes to. So I picked an area that I figured something would happen there. And I don't think that has changed for me. Now, if I'd logged in, I'd see that I'm in this valley and there are large ridges on the other side, and the roads go around me all of the sudden, and no one's gonna be passing through, and I'm gonna then I don't know. I'd probably still be okay with it,
No
but
trade routes. So you have trade routes, but if you didn't have them, you could build some, right?
oh, trade routes. It's Torresk land. Everywhere has a trade route.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
I mean, it didn't change for me either. As I mentioned in chat, though, I don't necessarily have the intent of being a perfect planning count, anyways. So, I personally wouldn't have really cared if the coastline was a little different, or there weren't as many trees, or the elevation was a little bit different. I plan to ruin things and retire to the beach. Well, I don't have a beach, so the coastline early. But I really can't understand where this might throw some people off that were. I mean, there's some grand plans out there about how to create these communities and where they were going to put things. So it'll be worth. I think it would be helpful if there can be just a little bit of explanation of what it means. Because the other thing that's been mentioned, which is kind of true, as you zoom in, you get to the county level, things just start to also look a little bit more blurry. They aren't as necessarily sharp as I think people had hoped. So it is a little
I
bit.
can agree with that. I dislike that when I zoom into that level, I get no more detail.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair, I think, criticism. It is kind of hard to tell at that level what exactly is going on, and then you take away the trees and the, as people have mentioned, waterfalls, and the roads change. There's no bridges, and it just starts to look kind of a mess as to what's actually going on. So and all we do have right now is to plan. Am I going to plan this big old community? No, but there are a lot of people that have been and will continue to plan. So these are things they kind of probably need to know. And I can understand the studio's response also. I'm sure a lot of that thinking is, well, we don't want you to know everything. We want you to explore and find this out as you're in the game, and like have a cartography actually be a skill. Well, you can't have that be a skill if everyone already knows ahead of time what is going on. I guess you could, but,
Right.
so
But
I can understand that too, but there does need to be
Well,
some sort
there's
of
a
balance.
difference between player knowledge and character knowledge.
Yeah, but I mean, you get what I'm saying. Though.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a part like the fog of war. I'm sure they want to maintain that as much as possible.
See, I figured at some point they were going to do cloth maps of the continent. So I don't know when it gets like at the end of Kingdoms or whatever, when the lines are kind of drawn for the start of the game. That give some amount of detail, but it wouldn't really be enough that you'd be able to use it for more than just kind of vague guidance and planning. I would imagine the level of detail and specificity and knowledge that the in-game maps will have is going to be much more important, especially if you're doing anything boating related. Having maps of the trade winds and where the good and the bad places, where all the ships go down and such, would really help with being able to plan and actually play the game better. Versus people can drop all the plans they want right now, but there's no idea if that's going to be the best ways to sail, or if that's going to be just like sailing straight into imminent danger every single time. So that's one of the things that even if they gave a slightly more detailed map, I'm not sure that it would really affect things too much. I understand they wouldn't want to give resource maps or something like that to give really fine detailed information like that, because it is stuff that probably they do want people to be able to discover or will be discovered before launch, as people just kind of play and poke around at stuff and kind of get into some of the early stuff. But that's yeah.
So, Sog, you had also mentioned you can't see prices if you're logged in. Is that I can.
I have to log in as my alt that doesn't own any property, that hasn't claimed anything, to see any price under the duchy level. I can only see duchy prices are higher. But before we move on, that other perspective of wishing to not see as much, or that thinking that maybe that there's a limit to how much detail should be given out. We got that perspective in our Discord chat from Terragwin earlier in the week. Was the demystification of some of it was kind of a letdown. That the stylized, cartoony map was neat, because once you get in there, then you get to figure it out once you're in the world. And the more detail we're given ahead of time, it knocks down that experience once you're there. I don't have a strong opinion about that, but he was one of the people in our Discord chat that mentioned, not necessarily being supportive of having more detail on the map right now.
I guess I should refer. I don't necessarily. I guess I could kind of clarify a little bit. So I'm not necessarily saying my previous comments were to have more detailed maps. It's more, I think there should be an explanation of, okay, why does one look different from the other? Does that make sense? Like, I think that would be kind of helpful.
I honestly believe that the more detailed topography was we think we can do this, and we're going to throw you a bone because we've had a delay. I think it was a freebie they never planned on giving out, but because of the delays in the process, they thought, well, if we just add in this extra bell and whistle.
Yeah, maybe.
So
So,
I derailed something.
we were talking about prices.
Yeah, I cannot see them unless I log in as my alt, who I was considering maybe shopping for a settlement on, but I don't feel like anything is in my price range for what it is right now. I think settlements cost twice as much as they should. And or they're twice as much as what I would expect to pay for one right now at this stage of the game. I thought that by taking the 375 county upgrade pack that I was paying a premium for that, for the ability to participate in domain and settlement selection. I thought I was paying a premium, and I was happy to pay a premium for that. And counties now are listed higher than that. And I don't, and you don't get to participate in the previous event that was more fun because it had, because everyone who wasn't had purchased the ability to claim a domain was participating, and there was lots to talk about. There was all kinds of stuff going on. Now it's just buying something. You're not really, you're barely a splash in the pond, even if you buy a duchy, at this point, because there's not a whole lot else going on, and it's not that different from someone having not claimed it before. You're not hoping that you can buy something before somebody else. I think that a lot of that is just gone, and I don't know. Sales have been made, so my perspective, I think it should be a lot cheaper. But people that had their eye on things jumped on it and bought it.
You're not buying anything. You're an explorer, so you don't care.
I'm one package below mayor, proprietor, I believe it is. I've thought about maybe getting a town, but I also don't really want to have a strong leadership role. I kind of want to get the ball rolling with stuff and kind of be there for some amount of guidance, but for the most part, be constantly deploying to all the various dungeons in the area and throughout the land. That's basically what I'm planning to do. That platforming video and the trial stuff that they're going to be showing, like that's going to be me. That's all day. Like I'm going to be the light scout that's getting around and throwing the rope down and stuff like that. So
or up or across
or up or across or whatever, however it's going to be, climbing up a pole and doing a jump across to some lattice that I shimmy across or whatever, wall run and this and that, and then puke because I just like completely gassed myself out. Apparently we'll see how that all goes, but yeah, that's I don't really plan to buy anything more. I've looked at some places and wouldn't break the budget or anything for me whatsoever. Hell, I bought like 11,000 EP that I'm just going to be using for my own personal neighborhood, basically. So I think I've got my cut out for me there already. I don't really need to get anything larger than the nice place that I'm already planning to build.
And then the professions don't factor in. I don't think anybody's really mentioned that matters to them.
Oh, engineering is actually one of the things in I'm setting up, so I'm actually
Yeah, no,
good
I
with
mean in
that.
terms of getting a settlement or a duchy or a county or whatever. It seems like that didn't factor in. Resources may have factored in. I don't know.
Professions was the first thing that I looked at, other than knowing that I wanted to be on a border.
Well, you want it to
Because
rest, right? I thought that was first.
well, yeah, it certainly Turesk, and then I committed to choosing on the Riftwood, not Tyrius side of the primary Turesk areas, and then I always wanted to be in a high travel through area. I'd like to have, I kind of I'm still interested in having like taverns, hosting events and things like that. So while looking at location was important for that, but then second to that was the only resources I wanted trade routes, because it would imply people movement, and then it was about professions, and the two big ones that I looked for were performer and performer, diplomat, and interpreter, because they would imply that a lot of people from a variety of different areas would be.
So wait, so diplomat was one, and hunter, did you say was the other?
Interpreter
Interpreter and diplomat. Okay.
and performer.
Oh, interpreter, performer. Okay.
So in my city right now, the common professions are fisherman, farmer, constable, livestock keeper, merchant, but those are just things that are common places, right? And notable is stationer, interpreter, performer, spy, and astronomer. And then if I go back to look at the county as a whole, the notable is diplomat, merchant, spy, trader, interpreter, author, all kinds of things that would imply that people are interacting and coming through the area. So I put a lot of stock in looking at the profession lists. I wish that I had a screenshot of what it looked like before, but a lot of that would have changed because I dramatically altered the population of the area with the combined package. So I turned a town into a capital. So it will be different.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it would be cool if it's the capital of performing, like performing capital of the world. That would be nice.
If you look inside, that's actually the name of the button, which I don't know, for some reason irritates me. But primary industry in the capital city of Tararum, in my county, is education. So I think what that suggests is that all the professions that are common are the ones that just keep people alive in a big city, but that everyone is working towards supporting the stationers and the astronomers and the other things. It's what everybody's working for. That's kind of how Snipe described it when he was talking about what the primary industry meant. It wasn't like everyone in the city is doing that, but it's like, when the city works together towards a goal, this is the kind of overarching thing that they would do. And that was, looking at the primary industry was a big factor in my claiming, and that hasn't changed, but none of that stuff should have changed unless, and I know other people have said that when they made their claims and they boosted populations in small areas dramatically, that they changed things around the area. I haven't noticed anything that with my small area here.
So I was just going to say we're starting to get towards the end. They, per their ticker, they've made somewhere just, I don't have the exact number anymore because it was this morning when I checked it, but $23,000, I guess, since the restart per their ticker. So not terrible. Not on the level of Kickstarterversary, but I'm curious to see how much that changes going forward. I feel like you probably have the rush of your current customer base within the first few days. Probably some stragglers waiting to see prices go down, but we had no advertising, literally a 24-hour warning, less than 24-hour warning. Although that,
and then a 2-day delay.
Yeah, so I guess that technically got extended because they had to wait.
How long is it lasting? How long is
45 days. The thing for me that's kind of funny is that I don't think this one was really about money and ever was about money, considering when we were talking about it during the first attempted deployment, it was at the worst time to try to get money from people. It was right through the holiday season where people are already tapped out. So I feel like it was, if people were going to get stuff, they would have, maybe saved up and been ready and, figured it was going to come along at some point. But ultimately, I don't think this is one that they're really banking on being the high ticket item. I still think they're trying to get it up and running and finished as soon as possible so that way they can move on to whatever the next phase is.
Finally got rid of flash sales, which probably should have happened
at the start
3 months ago.
The first one. Yep.
There's nothing inherently wrong with flash sales. I think
just needed to be implemented correctly.
Yeah.
The idea is cool, but it didn't work the first time. And
Right.
a lot of us suggested, hey, a lot of the, your current community, most of them didn't really care about this anyways. 90+% of those, nobody's going to see or buy. You just have to happen to be on, you have your eye on that county and you just have to somehow have chance happen that you are on the website as it goes for 15 minutes. That's just not likely. So why continue to push that? And that was the problem again this time.
I did help one person actually get the flash sale because I saw a place that whatever the flash sale was, I announced in COE chat, hey, anybody want to be the lucky taker of such and such location? And I got a DM from someone, me. This is the place.
So all they need is for you to be present.
I guess so. I guess
day.
I just got to be shouting about, hey guys, guess what? This place is on sale.
So we send you a text message with the current flash sale, and then it's your job to just see it, to shout it into the void, and hope somebody hears the message.
It would be an interesting influencer project, but sure, sign me up.
You could have worked that into a Discord bot. You really could have.
You're right. That's Discord or a bot that deploys to that, and their Facebook and the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Tinder and whatever other places they're on.
TikTok. It's all about TikTok now.
So we went 78 days. I know because I posted in Reddit. 78 days. Still tried it. Then we went 2 more days, and then finally said, okay. They kind of left it as we're going to keep working on it, right? They didn't necessarily say it's removed. It's just sort of paused.
It shouldn't be removed. It's a good idea.
Well, they're going to run out of time to do it. Now.
45 days? I don't know. It's doable, and it's not inherently a problem. The problem is that it's just not an entire company that excels at web-based things. We have not seen a high level of execution consistently on that. I was very happy with domain and settlement selection the second time. I'm not unhappy with the way the maps are now, but it's a lot of work to make things like this great, and if it's not your specialty, don't know. Huntmaster looks for new domains on Tinder. He's been swiping. I don't know if left or right is good. I don't know. I actually don't have Tinder, so y'all gotta teach me the ways. Do I swipe left or right, and what does it mean? I'm not even looking at domains right now, though. I looked at a couple that said $85, and I thought that they were gonna say $35, and that hurt my soul. That's really the price discrepancy in my mind. Like, I think that everything should be 40% of the price that it is right now, and at that point, it's enticing. I think you sell 5 things at 40% of the price, but not when it trickles down to that value in 45 days because people are bored, right? I don't think you look and you're like, man, I'll buy that $95 property when it costs $40. You know, I don't know. People do silly things.
Some people might be waiting for the last few days before then.
If it's still there.
Yeah, wait for the last 2 days to find out it's still more expensive than you want it to be. I'll continue watching that, but when I look at something and I think it costs more than twice what I want it to cost, like, let's say you're shopping for a car, you know, it's a different scale, right? I look at cars and I see a car and I look it up and it says that it's $80,000, you know, brand new, one of those new Lexus sports cars that are pretty awesome. $80,000, you know. Okay, no thanks. A Miata is like $28,000. And it's fast and fun, and you can go drive it, right? Like, I don't think that I'm looking at a Lexus or a Maserati. I think that I'm looking at a Miata, and I want it to be the Miata price.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm done purchasing anything, so I would probably purchase the settlement that's in my county if I didn't have to create a new alt. I might do that, but otherwise I'm more interested in the, I guess, data that flows out of this, like trying to analyze how successful it was, trying to figure out where NPCs are and where humans are. I don't know that that's possible, but I'm certainly going to pay attention and try to find out. I just still think that the timing and everything else. This is just sort of let's get it done with. We know this isn't going to be a big necessarily money maker for us. We said we'd do it, so let's do it, and then move on to the next. So, what is next? Actually, I've seen some conflicting. Is it Personas or?
I think it's Personas next.
Mhm.
I was hoping it was a client, but
Personas is super cool though. Like, Personas is another thing, kind of like domain selection, where this idea of being able to help with the exposition of the world itself and the way that you design and understand your character actually has bearing on your interactions moving forward, and potentially the way the story is crafted around you. I think that it might not be sitting in front of my computer, actually playing a video game, but it's a really cool way to be part of the world building itself. And I don't think we should Nosum says State of Elyria is next.
What is that?
Am I misunderstanding what
Is that
that's
the thing
just-
they were going to put out at the end of last year?
Yeah, that's the basically I think Caspian or the studio kind of summing up what they've done and what's coming next, basically like State of the Union. It's nothing.
Yeah, but that's not a.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's no.
That's not an
mechanics.
interactive thing.
I do hope they consider. Well, actually, I take that back. I was about to say I hope they consider some sort of milestone tracker or some sort of way to figure out visually present what they're working on. But I feel like that might actually just end up worse. So never mind.
I would not support them putting up like a Kanban board of what they're working on and how they're doing that. That would be horrible for them and us.
Well, we are now at the end of this show. So anything else left to say at this point?
Not for now. I wonder what news and interesting stuff will happen over the next week or two. For the next show, whenever that's going to be.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, everything continues running smoothly. We'll see. So, we will, I guess, next Sunday be back with Ashes of Creation, which we've put off for quite a while, unless there is something that obviously comes about here. So,
Right.
Otherwise, we have the next 43 days. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Have a good week, and we will see you in a week.
Yep.
Okie
Stay
dokie.
safe, everybody.